Hello everybody, and welcome to the September 25th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. I think we should start off with the most important news, the news that you tune into the Ephrom Report to see. There are still a bunch of flies down here. In fact, I think there are even more now, and it's really annoying me. Some may say nobody cares about the flies in this basement that I pretend is a recording studio, and to that I say, well, I care, and tell you about them anyway. I would try doing a war on flies, but if the Republicans have taught me anything, that never works out very well. Anyway, speaking of Republicans, there have been a lot of new ones, especially with the walk away movement, which is basically dedicated to a bunch of white Republicans saying, well, black people agree with us now, which I guess is different from when Democrats said black people agree with us now since roughly 1972 or so. You see, when Democrats do that, it's identity politics, which is a bad thing. But when Republicans do it, it's encouraging free thinking. Typically, that free thinking leads to an objectively wrong answer, but that's a good thing, because at least they're thinking freely by joining a collective. Man, I swear, all these, all these nonconformists just happen to look the same to me. I don't know if I'm just racist like that, or maybe I'm racist because I don't believe that welfare was actually a plot by white people to permanently impoverish black people. I'm not kidding, that's what these people actually believe, and no, it really doesn't make much sense. I guess we're just all supposed to ignore the fact that white people can also go on welfare, as can, well, people of any race. We even let illegal immigrants on it from time to time, which we shouldn't, but, you know. But, I'm sorry, that's a theory that annoys me quite a bit. The intellectual leader of the walk away movement and of the New Republicans movement is, of course, Ben Shapiro, who runs the Daily Wire, and we actually covered one of his buddies, Matt Walsh, yesterday for an entire episode. However, that isn't the only thing that they do. As mentioned, they also have Andrew Klavan, who is doing a series right now about the leftist alphabet, whatever that means. I already talked about his Constitution video and how he essentially assumes government power is a zero-sum game, which it isn't. However, he made another video. It's E for equality. Klavan defines the leftist definition of equality. I don't know why I'm wearing headphones now. I feel like I'm gonna suffocate. I'm gonna just... Bad headphones. You tried to kill me. Klavan defines equality as the state in which everyone gets the same treatment, receives the same rewards, and has the same amount of money, no matter how they behave, how much they work, or how much their work is worth to other people. Now, that's not actually what leftists mean when we talk about equality. He is talking more based on equity, which is resources. People like me don't actually want equal results. We recognize the failures of the communist systems that try and do equal results. Instead, all we've ever wanted is equal opportunity, and you may feel free market, pure capitalism is the best way to do that. I don't. I've never been convinced of that. But if you look, and for that matter, if you look at our current system, study after study has shown that if you are born poor, you're more likely to die poor. If you're born rich, you're more likely to die rich. If you're born in Compton, you don't get the same opportunity as someone in Beverly Hills does, essentially. However, that doesn't always evolve, as Clavin puts it, taking money away from people like Mitt Romney's son, who's never worked a day in his life, or Charles Koch, who never really worked a day in his life, and giving it to someone in Compton who works 40 hours a week. That's one idea, but not the preferred idea. The system that people like me advocate for is a system where some things are simply taken off the table so you can have more money to do other things. And this is where Clayton responds with, well, nothing is free, to which I reply, no one ever said that in a serious discussion. Maybe in a casual one, someone was like, yeah, I support free healthcare. But most of us recognize that we can't have free healthcare. We can, however, have universal healthcare, Medicare for all, or a single payer system. Or, if you really want to smear us, socialized medicine. This, for the record, is also what affirmative action is. Supposed to. Why are these headphones back on? I don't know how they keep getting. Durr! In case you're wondering. Okay, now someone's just messing with me. In case you're wondering, he spends about 3 minutes basically complaining about that obvious misunderstanding of leftist, well, vocabulary. And it's not even like it's a hard thing to understand. I mean, ask any liberal, they'll tell you we don't want equal outcome. There are rich people all across Europe. There are rich people all across Vermont, which is where a lot of liberal ideas are. Heck, there are tons of rich people in California, which I keep hearing is some bastion of progressivism whenever anything bad happens there. They'll never tell you about the fact they've had several budget surpluses, but However, all of that doesn't matter because Andrew Clavin doesn't understand words. Anyway, we're gearing up for 2020. Still. Eventually, the car's going to start running, though. It's not going to start running yet, but it's going to start running soon. However, polls have already started, and CNN is already there. And many journalists, as well as other members of the deep state, seem to be all willing to talk about who's going to run. To the point where CNN put Bernie Sanders, the most popular politician in America right now, as the 5th most likely to win in 2020. Or win the nominee in 2020 at least. I love it. I love this, by the way. The vast majority of polls put him as number 1. Not according to CNN. You know who's behind it. Here's who's in front of him. Joe Biden. Okay, that makes sense. I can see Biden getting the nominee. Biden. I actually wrote a column on him not too long ago called Old Man Biden Screams at Clouds. But the problem with Joe Biden is every third thing he says is incredibly stupid. And every second thing he says makes Democrats hate him. But apparently that means he's going to be the nominee. Let me give you some of his great statements that are really going to bring in young voters. Such as telling them that, ready for this, young people need to give him a break, and he has no empathy because they have it easy. Essentially, well, why don't these kids just wear a sweater? He is convinced the political system worked when Democrats included segregationists that he regularly said he worked with and had dinner with, even if he did argue with them. Now that's a romantic story if I've ever heard one. I'm actually writing a romantic novel right now called Joe Biden and Jesse Helms. It's a working title. And for that matter, during the Council of Foreign Relations, which, on a side note, doesn't exist, it's all a conspiracy meeting, he bragged about trying to interfere with the political system in Ukraine and trying to get pro-Russia politicians out of office. But Russia colluded in the US election. It doesn't matter that we colluded in Ukraine. And for that matter, apparently he's just giving up on anti-war voters. You know, the most strongly Democratic stronghold since the 1970s. It's always been Republicans are the party of war, Democrats are the party of peace. It's always been what they say. Joe Biden apparently doesn't like that. But to be fair, there are probably 2 or 3 individual polls out there. There are probably 1 or 2. There's probably one I could make up right now that claim that Joe Biden is ahead of Bernie Sanders. But even then, it'd be kind of neck and neck. And while both do have a good chance of winning, Sanders is clearly more of a safe bet than Biden is. But here's who they have in between them. Elizabeth Warren. Not a bad pick, personally. I don't agree with her all the time, but I don't agree with Bernie all the time either. I think she'd be roughly about the same quality president. Kamala Harris, who no one has heard of unless you actively pay attention to politics. Basically, if you don't like the fact Steve Mnuchin is Secretary of Treasury, you can blame her. Seriously. Wait a minute! Let me check something real quick. They got the picture wrong for Kamala. Okay, I'll post this on Twitter just after tonight's show. But go look up the poll for 2020 from CNN. Kamala Harris's picture is significantly whiter than she is in real life. Just figured that needed to be noted. Like, oh God, I hate doing this. I don't know if you guys can see Kamala in this very well. But if you can't, she's significantly whiter here than she is in actual real life. It's not even that bothered. It's just a weird change to make. And Kirsten Gillibrand, who, she's Chuck Schumer-style Democrat. I could tolerate her presidency. I could probably also tolerate Harris's presidency. I could support these people in general. I could just never do it in the primary, personally. They also have noted Democrats Eric Holder, who invented pulling a holder, by the way, which if you do not know is when a politician actively only advocates for good ideas once they're out of office, that they should have when they were in office. Steve Bullock, who basically no one has ever heard of. Cory Booker, who no one who's ever heard of has liked. Mitch, no clue how to pronounce that, who no one has ever heard of. And Sherrod Brown, who would actually be an okay president, probably in the same tier as Warren or maybe even Sanders. So those are the lineup for 2020, and oh God, it sounds awful. Calling it now, the people most likely to vote in primaries are going to be Republicans who want to rig it in their favor. I'm Ephrom, and good night.